Welcome to the Mystery and History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. In 1890, in Iran, an execution was carried out using a cannon. This form of punishment was a method of public execution commonly associated with harsh regimes of the time. The image depicts a tense and dramatic moment, reflecting the punitive practices of the era. Two French men restrain a woman, while another cuts her hair after she was accused of collaborating with the Germans during the occupation in 1945. This type of punishment was common in France after liberation, when women suspected of associating with German soldiers were publicly humiliated. Women say goodbye to their companions through the round windows of a docked ship. The scene, captured in the 1950s, depicts emotional farewells before a long journey. Maritime transportation was one of the main ways to travel long distances at the time, being used for both tourism and important relocations. 16-year-old Brenda Spencer leaves court in Santa Ana, California in 1979 after pleading guilty to 2 fatal incidents and injuring 9 others in a long-distance shooting attack. The case gained widespread attention at the time, particularly due to Spencer's unusual claimed motivation. In 1944, during World War II in Naples, Italy, a friend helped his amputee companion who had been injured in the war. The photo, captured by Henri Cartier-Bresson, illustrates a moment of support and friendship amidst the devastation of war, highlighting the solidarity between soldiers during one of the most difficult times in history. 2 German soldiers in 1916 during World War I. The period was marked by intense battles on multiple fronts, including the Battle of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme. Trench warfare conditions were extremely harsh, with cold, hunger, and constant shelling. A little girl holds her doll among the rubble in London during World War II. Bombings destroyed thousands of homes, leaving many families displaced. The image symbolizes the resilience of children amid conflict and the devastation caused by air raids in the city. The photo shows German Albrecht Höhler after his arrest for the fatal attack on Nazi Party member Horst Wessel. After his death, the Nazis turned Wessel into a symbol for their propaganda. The image was taken in 1930 when the case gained public attention. A child meets his father, a World War II soldier, for the first time in 1956. Many servicemen spent years away from their families during the war and post-war period. This delayed reunion happened because some soldiers could only return years later due to extended missions or relocations. The bow section of the Amoco Cadiz supertanker, after it broke apart and spilled 220,000 tons of oil onto the French coast in March 1978. It was one of the worst ecological disasters of the 1970s, with devastating consequences for the marine and coastal environment, highlighting the risks associated with oil transport. On April 28, 1988, Aloha Airlines Flight 243 faced an emergency when the aircraft's roof was torn off mid-flight. Despite the dramatic incident, most passengers survived. One flight attendant lost her life, and the event is remembered as a milestone in aviation history. Benjamin Ferencz was the last surviving prosecutor from the subsequent trials. In 1947, he became the chief prosecutor of what was called the biggest war crimes trial in history. He spent his entire life fighting for justice for the victims. He passed away this week. A soldier stands beside his machine gun, mounted on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, to prevent rioters from entering the building during the unrest that followed the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968. Protests and clashes erupted in several cities across the country after his death, leading to the National Guard being deployed to restore order. In 1910, mentally ill patients in England were treated under conditions that are now considered inhumane. The image shows a treatment practice used at the time with patients in confinement cells. This period reflects the limited understanding and inadequate approaches to mental health that existed during that era. The image shows 2 boys working in a textile factory in the early 20th century. They are performing dangerous tasks on heavy machinery, an example of the child labor conditions of the time. The use of child labor was a reality during the Industrial Revolution, highlighting the need for labor law reforms. In 1970, Vietnam War veterans protested against the conflict, carrying signs with the slogan, "We won't fight another rich man's war." The protest reflected the veterans' frustration with the United States' involvement in the war, especially regarding the impact it had on soldiers and civilians, while many felt the war was driven by financial interests. In 1937, Hermann Göring, Reichsmarshal of Germany, demonstrated an exercise horse in the gymnasium of his villa, Hall, to Adolf Hitler. The scene reflects the lifestyle of Nazi leaders, with the opulence of their residences contrasting with the events taking place in Europe at that time. In 1945, a crashed plane was stuck on the 5th floor of a building in Berlin. The incident occurred at the end of World War II, a period marked by intense conflicts. The image illustrates the devastation of the war and the visible effects on the city, which was facing severe damage during that time. A uniformed man walks toward his family, who runs to welcome him with open arms. The scene takes place in front of a house decorated with British flags and a welcome sign with the name Hector. The image, taken at the end of World War II, symbolizes the reunion of soldiers returning home after years of absence, marking a moment of relief and hope. Calamity Jane visits Wild Bill Hickok's grave at Mount Moriah Cemetery in Deadwood, South Dakota. Known for her adventurous life in the Old West, Jane claimed to have a strong connection with Hickok. After her passing in 1903, she was buried beside him as she had wished. The Clifford steam locomotive operated on the Brooklyn, Bath and Coney Island Railroad in 1853, connecting different parts of New York during a period of expanding railway transportation. Train lines were essential for passenger and freight movement, improving access to Coney Island, a popular destination. William Doolan led the Wild Bunch, a group active in the Old West in the late 19th century. Born in 1858, he worked as a cowboy before forming his gang, known for robbing banks and trains. Construction workers are positioned on steel beams high above the Empire State Building during its construction in New York in the 1930s. The image captures the daring nature of these workers, who operated without modern safety equipment. Australian soldiers from the 61st Battalion, Queensland Cameron Highlanders, along the Mosageta River on an island in March during the campaign against Japanese forces in World War II. The unit took part in operations in the Pacific region, facing harsh conditions in dense jungles and flooded terrain. A photo from 1941 shows soldiers in Tobruk, Libya during World War II wearing gas masks while working. Tobruk was a strategic point in the North African battles, and soldiers faced tough conditions due to the threat of chemical warfare. New Yorkers stopped to watch the Seinfeld finale in Times Square in 1998. The show, one of the most popular on television, ended after 9 seasons, attracting millions of viewers. The final episode was a major cultural event in the United States, with public screenings and fan gatherings to witness the show's conclusion. Sigmund Freud poses with his sons in 1916 during a period of significant impact on his psychoanalytic studies. Born in 1856, Freud is known for developing theories about the unconscious and dream interpretation. A man dressed in traditional clothing holds a stick beside a decorated camel near a river surrounded by palm trees. In the background, the Pyramid of Giza dominates the landscape, accompanied by buildings typical of late 19th century Egypt. Anita Bryant, leader of the Save Our Children campaign, gets a pie in the face from an LGBTQ+ rights activist in Des Moines, Iowa, on October 14, 1977. The protest happened during a press conference, symbolizing opposition to Bryant's movement against laws protecting LGBTQ+ people from discrimination. One of only 2 known photos of the U.S. Supreme Court, where cameras are forbidden. This image was taken in 1937 by a young woman who hid a small camera in her handbag, cutting a hole through which the lens captured the scene. Photographs inside the Supreme Court are extremely rare due to strict security restrictions. In 1922 in Philadelphia, one of the first mechanical traffic signals was installed, manually operated by a traffic officer. This pioneering device used visual signals to coordinate the flow of vehicles and pedestrians, representing a significant advancement in urban traffic organization. A long and emotional goodbye before departing for World War II. Thousands of soldiers left their families to serve in the conflict, often unsure if they would return. Train stations and ports became the scene of heartfelt farewells, symbolizing the human cost of war. The construction of the bell tower of the Sacré-Cœur Basilica began on Montmartre Hill in Paris in the 1880s. The architectural project was initiated after the Franco-Prussian War as a symbol of recovery and faith. 3 archers practice Kyudo, the traditional martial art of archery, in Japan in 1890. This practice, rooted in samurai culture, required precision, discipline, and focus. During this period, Kyudo was still used for both martial and ceremonial purposes. The 1915 photo shows an elegant couple going for an afternoon stroll. Both are dressed in formal clothing typical of the time, with the man wearing a suit, hat, and cane, while the woman wears an elegant dress, hat, and fur accessories. An anti-freezing machine was used in 1932 to protect crops during winter, blowing air over plants to reduce the risk of ice formation. This method helped farmers minimize damage caused by extreme cold. The Flatiron Building appears covered in snow after a heavy blizzard in Manhattan, New York. The scene, captured in 1913, shows the iconic intersection of 5th Avenue and 23rd Street, where pedestrians and carriages move slowly through the ice-covered streets. A World War I veteran wears his Iron Cross while a Nazi stands in front of his shop for intimidation in 1933. Many Jewish veterans who served in the war faced persecution after the Nazi regime came to power, despite their military decorations. CIA agent Felix Rodriguez left, and Bolivian soldiers with Che Guevara moments before his final capture in Bolivia on October 9, 1967. Guevara, one of the key revolutionary leaders in Latin America, was detained after a military campaign in the region. Italian army soldiers aim their rifles at a man leaning against the wall, while an officer raises his hand, seemingly giving an order. The image was taken during the 1920s, possibly linked to the expansion of Benito Mussolini's government. Jakob Nacken, standing 7 feet 3 inches, 221 centimeters tall, was the tallest Nazi soldier ever recorded. In the photo, he is seen chatting with 5 feet 3 inches, 160 centimeters, Canadian Corporal Roberts after surrendering near Calais, France, in September 1944. Camille Janazzi drives Le Jamais Content, the first land vehicle to exceed 100 kilometers per hour in 1899. The electric car, designed in Belgium, featured an advanced aerodynamic design for its time and was powered by 2 25-kilowatt electric motors. A Swedish couple poses for a photo on their wedding day in 1903. The image reflects the fashion of the time, with formal attire and the typically elegant setting of early 20th century wedding celebrations. Maud Odell drives a taxi through the streets of New York in 1923, becoming one of the first women to work in this profession in the city. At the time, few women worked in transportation, making her presence a novelty. Urban growth and the increasing popularity of automobiles created opportunities for independent drivers, allowing pioneers like Odell to challenge social norms and seek new opportunities. A group of elderly men sits on a mat in Peshawar, Pakistan, around 1915. 2 of them stare at each other with serious expressions, suggesting they may be rivals. The photo may have been taken to represent local inhabitants, reflecting the cultural diversity of the region. Ruth Lee at a Chinese restaurant holds a Chinese flag, so she is not mistaken for someone of Japanese descent after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. During this time, many Chinese people in the United States wore badges or displayed flags to avoid discrimination as the country was at war with Japan. Joseph Goebbels sits outdoors, wearing a dark suit and holding a paper, while two men beside him lean in to observe him. Behind them, several people walk and talk in a formal setting. During World War I, an alpine shelter was built on Monte Cristallo, Italy, at an altitude of 8,760 feet, 2,670 meters. Positioned on a steep cliff, it served as a refuge for Italian soldiers, protecting them from harsh weather conditions and military operations in the Dolomites region. NYC protest on June 7, 1941. During this period, the United States had not yet officially entered World War II, but public demonstrations took place in response to conflicts in Europe and Asia. Firefighters conduct a drill at the National Museum in Krakow in 1930, testing fire safety measures. During this period, historic buildings began implementing preventive practices to protect valuable collections. Paul Newman and John Woodward are in Paris in 1959, shopping. The image captures a casual moment in the everyday life of two major Hollywood stars during a visit to the city. Maud Odell drives a taxi through the streets of New York in 1923, becoming one of the first women to work in this profession in the city. At the time, few women worked in transportation, making her presence a novelty. The 1915 photo shows a busy street in New York City, capturing the urban scene of the time. Cars and carriages are on the streets, and the city appears to be in full swing, with people walking on the sidewalks. The image shows workers cleaning a canal in Venice, Italy, possibly during the 20th century. The task was difficult and dirty, with workers using barges to remove accumulated debris. The image shows a large gathering in a stadium, likely during the 1930s, at an event that brought together a huge crowd. The scene reflects the grandiose political demonstrations that took place at various points in history, featuring prominent symbolism. Such gatherings were used to influence public opinion. In 1933, Italian inventor Davide Cislaghi was testing his single-wheel engine in France. The groundbreaking invention featured a futuristic design for its time, showcasing the creativity and innovation that marked early attempts to create more agile vehicles with designs different from the traditional ones. The yeoman warders, known as beefeaters, appear in their traditional uniforms at the Tower of London in 1898. These ceremonial guards date back to the reign of Henry VII in the late 15th century. The Dakota Building stands prominently in New York City in 1890, recognized as one of the city's first luxury buildings. Built in 1884 on the Upper West Side, its German Renaissance-inspired architecture and prime location attracted notable residents over the years. In 1969, U.S. President Richard Nixon arrived aboard the USS Hornet for the recovery of Apollo 11. This historic event marked the safe return of the astronauts after the first successful mission to the moon, symbolizing the success of space exploration and the joint effort of the military and NASA. Nightclub owner Jack L. Hickman marches around Times Square holding a sign with an anti-communist message in New York City, United States, on April 26, 1965. The protest took place during the Cold War era, when ideological tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were at their peak. In 1897, a woman was churning milk to make butter while reading. Beside her, a little kitten watched the scene, adding a touch of cuteness to the everyday moment. The image captures the tranquility of a time when simple, routine tasks were part of daily life. The first A&W root beer store opened in California in 1919, marking the beginning of one of the oldest fast food chains in the United States. Founded by Roy Allen, the company started by selling its iconic chilled root beer in glass mugs to customers seeking a refreshing drink. A crowd gathers for an official event during the American Civil War. In the center of the image, among the spectators wearing top hats, is Abraham Lincoln, the country's president at the time. The photograph was taken on November 19, 1863, in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, during the dedication ceremony of the National Cemetery, where Lincoln delivered the famous Gettysburg Address. The photo shows women working in a factory in Fort Worth, Texas, in 1942, during World War II. These women, known as Rosie the Riveters, played essential roles in munitions factories and other industrial sectors, while the men were on the front lines. A woman uses a mop to clean the floor in a home during the 1950s, reflecting household habits of the time. During this period, modern appliances started to become popular, but many chores were still done manually. Children dressed in simple costumes walk through the streets to celebrate Halloween in the 1930s. The outfits, often handmade, reflect the creativity of the time, when cardboard masks and home-sewn fabrics were common. Westminster Bridge appears busy in 1910, connecting the banks of the River Thames in London. Built in 1862, its cast-iron structure and elegant design make it one of the city's most recognizable landmarks. The 1890 photo shows a restaurant in Paris, reflecting the city's lifestyle at the end of the 19th century. Paris, at the time, was a global cultural and gastronomic hub, with its restaurants known for sophistication and fine cuisine. The photo of Brigitte Bardot from 1956 shows the actress in the film And God Created Woman. Bardot, one of the biggest movie stars of the time, became an icon of beauty and sensuality. The 1950 photo taken by Maurice Zalewski shows a scene on Boulevard Saint-Germain in Paris. The street, famous for its historic architecture and vibrant cultural life, is one of the most iconic in the city. In 1978, American World War I veterans gathered for a group photo. The image shows men who, in their youth, faced the challenges of that World War. Each of them carries the marks of a difficult time, and this reunion represents the importance of memory and camaraderie among those who lived through this historical moment. In April 1945, a group of acrobats performed atop a tank to entertain Soviet troops. The image captures this unique moment, with soldiers watching the performance as the war continued. An interesting contrast between the harsh reality of the conflict and the light moments brought by the performance. The image shows the launch of a space shuttle, with the vehicle positioned on the launch pad, illuminated by the intense light from surrounding towers. This moment is one of many milestones in space exploration, symbolizing technological advancement and humanity's quest to explore space, with NASA being the leading force behind these missions. In August 1986, people played chess on Broadway in New York at the corner of Broadway and West 49th Street in Midtown Manhattan. The scene captured everyday life in the city, where citizens used public space to entertain themselves, reflecting the vibrant spirit and diverse urban activities of the city. In 1965, Ford introduced a car model with an integrated television. This technological advancement was an innovation of the time, reflecting the growing interest in electronic features in automobiles.